All right. So this discussion is once again permeating the Twitters. I swear it's like a 2-year cycle with this stuff. It feels like last year or 2 years ago we were having these discussions. We've had these discussions even before. I feel like within the lifespan of this show, as far as I've been in it, this discussion has come around about 3 times. So, open bracket tournaments versus invitationals, right? Which way should the FGC move forward in? Now, I'll give you my points, and then if anybody in the chat wants to join in, we'll open up the calls, and you'll be able to give your points, and we can have a discussion. Here's the sitch. The entire thing about the FGC that sets it apart from any other esport is the open bracket format, right? The FGC, I feel like, is one of those very, very few, if not only, communities where all you have to do to participate is show up, right? You can be anyone, anything, any skill level. As long as you show up, you get to play. At the minimum, you get to play 2 matches during the tournament, and then you get to play casuals or whatever you want to do, right? No other esport, at least that I've seen, has this kind of an advantage and this kind of a community feel, right? Where everybody's involved. It's usually reserved to people who are drafted into teams, or it's usually like I don't even know how people get into like something like Call of Duty or something like League of Legends, Dota, etc., etc. I guess you have to be picked up by a team and then you get sent places. How do you get picked up by a team? Hell's if I know, right? So the FGC is the most accessible esport in the world. With the introduction of online, that adds even more accessibility, right? Anyone, anywhere, at any time, as long as it lines up with the tournament, can participate, especially if it's those open bracket tournaments. Now, the big discussion has been, should there be open bracket online tournaments in order to set up a top 16 for an event, right? So events essentially go from open bracket events to just invitationals for people who participate in those open bracket qualifiers. That is the most asinine thing I have ever heard in my life. And here's why. First, that is going to be such a huge loss of opportunity for the FGC in general, because organizers are going to miss out on hosting people. Advertisers are going to miss out on advertising to people and making sales on location. Culturally, we're going to miss out because nobody is going to travel anymore, right? Like if you're talking my specific opinion, if this happens, like say for example, like a regional, like Texas Showdown. Texas Showdown is here in Texas, where I'm at. If Texas Showdown is online qualifier where only the top 16 get to go and everyone else can go to spectate, I'm not going, right? And the same holds up for literally any other tournament. Maybe with very few exceptions, but even then, it's not worth it for me to travel, right? If I don't get to play, right? So TOs are missing out. The opportunity for advertisers are missing out. The community is missing out. Like, think of all the artist alleys and all of the indie games that get to show off their stuff for all these bigger events, right? Like Evo CEO, Combo Breaker. Think of all of the vendors that go to sell merch. Think of literally everything at a tournament is gone because it's just going to be an invitational. Think of all the other streamers, right? Like think of literally any tournament, you have to have more than one stream at this point, right? Because there's multiple games happening. So Texas Showdown, for example, will have probably like 2 to 3 streams. I remember the Big E events have like 4 to 5 streams, right? So taking away this open bracket idea of anybody can go, anybody can play, because everybody is on the same level when it comes to attendance, is going to, in my opinion, ruin the FGC. Like, I think, honestly, that'll be the end of it. Because there's going to be no more incentive for anybody to travel. There's going to be no incentive for people to go to big tournaments, to, like, meet people, to go to places. It's just going to incentivize people staying at home and not attending. And the people who do the most in the most thankless ways, the TOs, are going to suffer, right? The big streamers, right? Or not even the big streamers. I mean, like, people who, like, the unheard of, or not unheard of, that's not what I mean. Like, the unsung streamers, right? I'm talking, like, people like BG Callisto, man, there's endless people. Like, I remember Kick Punch Block was a stream. People like Art going to, like, this the smaller tournaments and grinding out, you know, like, those are the people that are going to lose out on the money that they, or opportunities that they usually get. We're all going to lose opportunities to go see our friends, right? It's not often that, or it's not normal that we get to every once in a while go meet up as one community in one place, right? That's not normal in the sense of participation, right? Because with other esports, there's always like the two-tiered system, right? Where you have the players and the spectators. And those usually don't overlap. So when you divide the FGC like that with players and spectators, I feel like a lot of people who have done so much for the community and have been so involved are going to leave. Because there's no reason to be in it anymore if you can't participate, right? If your participation is being a stream monster or paying $50 to go sit in an arena, that's it. That's the end of the FGC, in my opinion. So the solution to this is to have both, right? Have a giant invitational events like Red Bull Kumite, Street Fighter League. Have them alongside these open bracket tournaments, right? I think Capcom is doing the best with this specific thing because they have the Capcom Pro Tour where it is an invitational, where you get to go see who's going to win the Capcom Cup. And they have their invitational league, Street Fighter League. They have their finals happening at Capcom Cup as well. So they're leveraging both sides of the coin to their advantage, right? Especially if they have something like a last chance qualifier. That incentivizes people to go. If you no longer have that, why go? Why spend all this money to go travel when you could just watch it at home? Nah, I mean, those are my points on this specific issue. I don't know if I'm too big of a fan of invitationals, right? Just because, you know, we see the same people doing the same things. Maybe that'll change with Street Fighter 6, I'm not sure. But it just feels like we always see the same faces doing the same things when there's an invitational. So unless there's more diversity in that sense, to me, invitationals feel kind of dry. With the exception of, you know, like off-the-wall invitationals, like something like Summit, like Smash Summit, or, you know, Red Bull Kumite. I remember Red Bull had the Proving Grounds, Battlegrounds thing, where like 3 people, one from Xrd, one from Street Fighter, and one from Tekken, were put into a team, and they went. That was a great idea. Stuff like that, like unusual, out of the norm, out of the box invitational ideas, I think is going to be the best to have in the FGC alongside open bracket tournaments. Those are my points. Does anybody in chat agree or disagree and want to hop on? And now also, as a big warning, if you do hop on the call, the audio you hear from me is going to sound like ass. So Squidly says that their piece is that they don't like the idea of participating in tournaments as much as they do just playing with other people with the same interests. Squidly, do you go to tournaments for that, or do you go to locals? I say that because I've met a ton of people who go to tournaments just to what they call pot monstering, right? Where you sign up for the tournament, you play, you do your best, and then you go play casuals, right? I've done that a lot. Hell, I do that every time I go to a tournament. You think I'm going to win something? Like, the one chance I have to maybe win something is as soon as the game comes out. And I find I pull an Eris where I find the dead shot. Once in a blue moon. Yeah, so I'm assuming you like playing online and you like hanging out with friends and playing like that. That's perfectly fine as well. And that can absolutely coexist with an open bracket tournament, right? Like the idea of being somebody in the outside looking in can absolutely coexist with an open bracket. However, a large portion of the FGC is going to be left out in the dust, and they will not be able to coexist with an invitationals only format. That's where I'm at.